Welcome back to the Live for Life podcast. I'm here with G-Dog. G-Dog, how are we today?
Well, we've just been discussing how my energy level is not as high as you would like because Angus wants me to be fired up, excited, like a spaniel every day. And there are some days when I'm not. And so we're trying to analyze what is the difference between G-Dog today. We're recording this on a Wednesday evening after I've been at work since 6:30 in the morning, compared to the episode we recorded the other day, which was following a sauna and a cold plunge whilst floating on the River Thames. So therein lies quite a significant difference in the backdrop to the recording session.
So does that mean we can only do podcasts after we've been for cold water therapy?
Well, I think we need to think about some podcasts will be more exciting than others.
But the audience
need to be prepared. So maybe we should give it a rating. This podcast is rated according to excitement and facts. Some of them are high fact and some of them are high excitement and fired upness.
Yeah, because the last one was very useful, obviously, how to ensure you're in a calorie deficit effectively. But you were a bit of a miserable bugger in it.
But you had always said to me, you had always said to me that I would get double cocaine level stimulus from being in the ice water of post sauna.
Clearly it worked.
And it worked.
So is that another Angus is right moment?
Maybe.
And you'd like to do it again. You did really enjoy it.
I did. And to be fair, I did get, as we said, to 1 hour. So 1 hour. 1 minute, 15 seconds.
3 minutes next.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe slower. But there was some, I discussed this with my vascular surgeon yesterday because I've now gone off my blood thinning tablets. So my blood will be full thickness in 24 hours. So hopefully I survive. But I was discussing with him that I had sore calves whilst in the cold water therapy. And he said that is possibly because of your blood thinning drugs. So next time we do it, as I said, my upper body wasn't nearly as cold or affected by the cold water, but it was my legs which caused me to want to get out. So I think next time, maybe I'll be able to sustain it longer because I'm not on the blood thinners.
That is very interesting. So other than that, how are we going to fire you up before every episode? We need to think of a routine, maybe.
Some electrodes?
We could do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe, do you know, like dogs sometimes have those electric collars?
Yes, good
when
idea.
When you're being a misery, I could just zap you.
Yeah, exactly. And I would just jump like that.
And then you'd just be fired up.
Or you could attach them to my pectorals and you would just force pec
Yeah, but you have no mind muscle connection.
That's true.
Just gotta get him along. I just know when he's been wired after a long day's work and he's just been back-to-back Zoom calls and just dialed in. And he comes into studio and I go, G-Dog! And he's like, hi, Angus. How was your day? G-Dog, it was fantastic. How was yours? Good. Should we do the podcast?
But anyway, enough of me. Let's talk about the podcast. So today, we're going to be talking about what supplements are worth taking. And we're going to try and make it a bit personal. We're obviously going to talk about facts as we always do, but we're going to talk about what Angus takes and what I take and how useful we've not found it or found it and what therefore is our advice to you, the listener.
So I've done a bit of trial and error recently on a few supplements. There are certain supplements that have been staples for a long time, but there has been more recent ones that have made a big difference. Some not as much. And then it is quite as simple as doing your own research and then finding out what works for you. I think that's a big factor when it comes to things like vitamins and things like that. Often you'll find, okay, do I need this? Oh, no, I don't because I get enough of this. And it's quite easy on like blood tests and things like that to work that out, isn't it? Vitamin D is obviously a standard vitamin, which G-Dog will go into, I'm sure, more facts and figures about what that is in a bit. But particularly somewhere like the United Kingdom, it's highly likely that actually people aren't getting enough sunlight, particularly in the winter months. But supplements that really stand out for me, so I'll talk from a personal perspective. So the first one that is obviously very hot topic at the moment, and they are popping up everywhere, is electrolytes. So with electrolytes, I have found if I'm not drinking alcohol and I am just going about my day-to-day life, I really don't need electrolytes. I get more than enough when it comes to the foods I'm having and also obviously what I'm drinking on a just natural basis to know that I'm hydrated. And having them as a supplement every single day is just not necessary. If I am obviously drinking alcohol and I'm on holiday or a night out, electrolytes definitely help me from curing a hangover because I've obviously dehydrated my system with the alcohol. The next supplement for me, which has been a new supplement that's come into my life, I would say since last summer, actually. And there's this company called 8 Hours, which I've spoken about on Magnesium. I know there are obviously a lot of benefits that are thrown out there, but one of the benefits for me has been the sleep side of things. I have always been a good sleeper, and I'm very fortunate in that sense that I can head hit the pillow most of the time, fall asleep, and wake up. Sadly, I very rarely do 8 hours plus undisturbed because I always need the loo after about 7. So I might get up and then go back to sleep. So I will sometimes really try and not, particularly in the week, have water or any drinks with my dinner because then it means I can do that 8-hour duration. But basically with the 8-hour supplement, it has improved my REM. So it has improved, obviously, my quality of sleep. So it's meant that I have woken up more energized and I found it even easier to go to sleep. I know G-Dog's going to dive a bit more into magnesium to see the studies behind that. But for me, it's worked. I'm not saying, again, you have to take it, but I found that's been really effective. The next supplement, of course, is creatine. That has been a staple for me and it's 100% effective. There's so many facts and figures and studies about it. And I think anyone who trains, actually not just people who train, right? Creatine is a great thing to supplement. Obviously, I don't know whether we'll obviously get onto it. G-Dog's dove into it too much, but there has been reports about the effects on cognitive function as well. And interestingly enough, there was something when I was doing my research that stood out for me. So Rory McIlroy, when he won the Masters, was taking 20 grams per day of creatine. And obviously the recommended dose is 5 grams. So that's really interesting. And there was a quote that...
is it grams or milligrams? I get confused.
Either or.
Yeah,
actually, let's just confirm that.
Sounds quite a lot of grams.
But McIlroy, this is my client, Benedict, sent this over, and his quote was, McIlroy calls it hit it further juice. So that's what he calls his creatine. But he won the Masters doing that. But he was talking about the cognitive function benefits. So maybe that has very much helped him. I know there's studies to come out on that, I'm sure. That's been thrown out. Another one, of course, I know I'm going on here, but I'm just talking about my personal supplements. G-Dog, dive in if you want to at any point. But another one, of course, is protein. So I have protein to hand on days where I might be a bit rushed and I just don't have my protein intake high enough for my liking. But you do not need protein powder. There is this myth that it's some kind of magical powder that makes you build muscle. All protein powder is useful for is adding in more protein when you're not getting in enough protein from food.
And it's a good low-calorie version. That's what I find. So yeah, I'm 90 kilos, so I'm targeting 180 to 200 grams of protein a day, and that is grams. And my target is sometimes difficult to achieve. Now, obviously, I'm having breakfast with protein in it, so that makes a difference. So 3 meals a day, each with protein in it. But if I feel like I'm not hitting the targets and I get to my dinner, I could actually have a protein shake effectively for dessert in the evening to add that extra 20 grams of protein to my diet. In fact, I did actually, I think last night, I put in extra protein powder. So I had 30 grams of protein. I had a very, very big weight training session yesterday evening. And I put in 30 grams of protein into a protein powder to really top myself up to make sure I definitely got to the 200 grams yesterday. Protein, obviously, is very, very good for muscle recovery and so on. So that's very important. But going back to just broad issues, when it comes to multivitamins, a lot of people take multivitamins. And if you are not training, then you're probably not listening to the Lift Life podcast. But if you're not training, there's actually no clinical evidence that you need multivitamins at all, unless you are medically deficient. So if you've got a very bad diet where you're just having, carbohydrates, minimal protein, therefore you're having a problem getting the vitamins from the meat or fish or any other vegetarian options you're having, then you do need to have vitamin supplementation for that. But if you've got a good diet, and obviously you should get your core micronutrients from your good diet, ideally, then you don't need to take supplements. There's loads and loads of studies I read, one from Harvard Medical School, another one from the US Preventative Services Task Force, whatever that is, another one from the National Cancer Institute and the National Institute of Health. And I said, is there any examples where a study has shown that supplements are important for disease prevention, et cetera, et cetera? And every single one of them came out, no significant reduction in cardiovascular disease, no significant reduction in invasive cancer, no significant reduction in anything, basically. So the issues where these supplements are needed outside of a training program are certain life stages. So, for example, if you're pregnant, then it's important to find supplements for specific to pregnancy, because obviously, effectively, you're feeding two human beings. So supplementation is important for that. Also, weather. So to your specific issue of vitamin D and being in the Northern Hemisphere, or particularly, I suppose, the UK, where you've not just got being in the Northern Hemisphere, but you also got dark days in the winter, where they're going dark at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Then the UK NHS, for example, in their public health guidance, says that 10 milligrams of vitamin D per day for adults and children over 1 year old is important during autumn and winter due to the limited sun exposure. And it says that older adults and those involved in pregnancy or breastfeeding will have a higher prevalence of deficiency in vitamin D, so they should supplement that. But the aggregate sort of just take a multivitamin every day, you're probably wasting your money.
Interesting.
I think also, to your point on creatine and protein, then that comes out constantly. So the most important study I looked at was from McMaster University. I think that's in Australia. And it was specifically into creatine supplementation during resistance training in older adults. It was in 2014. And it said creatine definitively increased muscle mass, it definitively increased strength, and it definitively improved the functional performance in adults. So there's no question. Every single study, I actually I asked for studies on creatine and its benefits, and I couldn't stop. There was like literally about 20 different studies, and all giving exactly the same conclusions. And literally, if you're training, you should definitely be taking creatine. And if you're not training, you should be taking it as well anyway, for all of the cognitive function things you just discussed. So creatine is very, very important. And then from the protein stuff, we don't need to repeat. Angus has said it already. So enhances strength, increases your lean muscle mass. It is most useful when your dietary protein intake is insufficient. So exactly what we've just described. And I think a lot of people do clearly have a problem with increasing the protein or having the right amounts of protein in their diet. So very, very important. Then there's a few other things, but before I go on to those, Angus, have you changed over the past couple of years any of your supplementation?
Well, obviously I bought in magnesium.
Yeah.
So the 8 hours product, as I said, which has other things other than magnesium. Something actually we weren't speaking about before the podcast, and you completely disagree with me anyway, and you've tried it yourself. Nootropics have been a supplement as such. So within that, you've got your ginseng, you've got your L-theanine, you've got your lion's mane, obviously integrated in, which again is beneficial for cognitive function. So I found mixed with caffeine, it only ever impacts me then. If I have them on their own, it doesn't seem to really do anything. So the combination of the two I find works really well. I'm still trying to work out what it actually is that really is effectively working. But those new tonic drinks that obviously Chris Williamson and James Smith created, I have found for my concentration has been a game changer. I don't know if that's anything to do with me being dyslexic, and actually it's just how my brain reacts to the nootropics, because that's something that I have found that the people who have taken something like Newtonic, who have said, wow, this works really well, have been ones who at school have been diagnosed with things like dyslexia, dyspraxia, and ADHD. Whereas, interesting enough, people like yourself, who obviously have a very amazing ability to be able to concentrate on any task, it seems to have no effect, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But the one thing that I have changed, obviously, since I've been training with Angus, I've been having creatine, I've been boosting my protein, and I've probably marginally increased my caffeine intake as well. I would say over the past few weeks, I was very fortunate to be gifted by David Beckham's PT, Bobby, IM8. And so I've been taking that since just before Christmas every day. So I take what's called the Beckham stack, which is a combination of longevity powder and then also the basic IM8 powder. It's got, I think, 92 different vitamins and minerals. It was designed by some very sophisticated process involving highly sophisticated scientists. If you go onto the website, it's quite incredible, the people involved in the creation of this.
Yeah, there's some cool
people and so I've definitely felt an impact on it, and all I can assume when I've put all of the nutrition into Google and ChatGPT and so on, that I was probably deficient in something, and this is helping me in some unknown way that I didn't expect. And when this runs out, I'm definitely going to start buying it, because I'm definitely feeling the effect. I'm having it in the morning as soon as I get up, before I have my coffee. Angus had always said to me for years and years, hydrate before you caffeinate. And so you can't just hydrate with water because it goes straight through you. The fact this has got so much vitamins and minerals inside it is probably meaning that I am actually hydrating in a proper way first thing in the morning. So that is probably helping me as well. But I've genuinely been shocked by this. So I've got my creatine, I've got my IM8. Admittedly, it's not cheap, but I have been getting it for free so far. And then I've got my protein powder, and then the caffeine, obviously, I would say I have maximum maybe 3 coffees per day. So I'll have one when I get into the office at about 6:45, 7 o'clock. I'll have another one at about 9:30, and I'll have another one just after lunch at about 1:30, 2 o'clock. I think in each one of those coffees, there's probably a double shot of espresso, and it's an Americano. So I'm probably getting effectively 6 shots of espresso every day. And that combination is perfect for me of all those different things.
It'll be cool when you do your next medical to see if there's any differences and standouts.
Yeah.
Once you supplemented it. So make sure you obviously compare that, because then you'll be able to work out what the standout thing is.
Yeah. So my next medical is actually the beginning of February. So I have this, we discussed it every year, a Bupa medical. And I've got now, amazingly, 15 years of history. So I'm able to say everything that's happened to me over 15 years in terms of my blood, in terms of my muscle mass, in terms of my weight, in terms of my body fat, my BMI, which is obviously pointless. But it's really, really interesting seeing, cardiovascular health is tested as well. I am definitively, according to the Bupa tests, in the best physical shape I've ever been in my life.
Any man has ever been in.
Any man has ever been.
Exactly.
I think
that's why you are a demigod.
Yeah. And the doctor at Bupa just gasps when he sees A, when he sees me, and then B, when he sees the results.
Apparently, we also need to do a DEXA scan.
Yeah, no question. I've really got to do that. I think that is really, really important for me, because you obviously
I'd love to see the muscle mass increase.
Have this perception that I've got high body fat, right?
No, I know.
So the DEXA scan will show the blueberry overload.
Gino has started this trend where he makes out like I just abuse and bully him, which is just not the case. I am so nice to you. If anything, too patient as well. So we were having dinner with mates recently, and he just whipped out these liners of like, effectively stuff I'd said, which then I had evidence to back up I hadn't said that.
But I think it's because I'm constantly suffering from body dysmorphia. and in my brain, I'm 25, but I sometimes look at my body and it doesn't look like I'm 25. And so I'm constantly trying to shred. And so the DEXA scan is a very important. Maybe the DEXA scan will solve my body dysmorphia.
So apparently, DEXA scan. Well, I don't know whether this is true or not, but apparently, so this is another client of mine who said some of the key takeaways. So their body fat was 11%, but their visceral was higher. So hits with high impact, so like high rocks training. And obviously less booze is something that apparently he should focus on. So that's interesting. But it also showed that he'd put on 3 kilograms of muscle and his body fat is significantly lower since we started training.
So the problem is I didn't have a DEXA scan before.
Yes.
So I can't see the before and after. So it's true that I should have one as soon as possible. So at least I've got some sort of threshold that I can work out. So by the time...
Maybe we book in a DEXA... he's actually said here,
life DEXA scan
100% you need to get a DEXA Lift for Life in.
Yeah, exactly. And get
Send
some content
G-Dog in
it.
for a scan. He'd love it.
Yeah, I think I really would. And I think I do need a baseline because
you don't.
Maybe we target the improvement in my DEXA scan between now and your 30th birthday.
I don't need I don't need you getting more body dysmorphia. I don't.
No, but I think it might solve it.
No,
because
it
might show, you think it's going to show really high body fat?
Make it worse.
It's
not going to show it worse. It's not going to show that. It's just like...
It'll come out you've got 30% body fat.
I just want you lifting, eating well, and loving life. Can't you just do that and just live for life?
But the mirror selfie is quite important.
Yes, I know that, but you're in great nick anyway.
I want to be in better nick.
Okay, so does that mean you're just not drinking for a year?
No, I have reduced my alcohol intake. The camera's going to zoom in on that face.
One thing we like to be on the Live for Life podcast is extremely honest. And it's fair to say, I'm looking at some of the things that G-Dog and I have in the diary over the next 6 months. And it's fair to say they're definitely the 20%. And one thing you'll know about G-Dog is he's not very disciplined when it comes to alcohol intake, unless I am. So he's very easy to lead astray, isn't that right, Dog? You get quite excited, and then the Lisa Simpson woo comes out, and then we all know what happens.
Yeah, so supplementation of alcohol is not a good idea.
Is there anything else you want to add on that, G-Dog?
No, I think so. But I mean, the conclusion I would have is, I mean, there's some quite nice conclusions. So most supplements are unnecessary for disease prevention. Supplements work best when correcting deficiencies. Supplements work best when supporting high training loads. So what we're doing. Pregnancy is the clearest example where supplements are unequivocally beneficial. Creatine is one of the strongest evidence-based supplements in sports and health. Protein and caffeine also have robust support. And finally, supplements amplify good habits, but do not replace training, sleep, diet.
So,
like, listen, and subscribe. Is that the right one?
Please like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. I'm not used to ending it.
And we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you next time.